What's up, one and all? This is another installment of Various Fields. My name is Hayes Fields III.
I'm Hayes Fields II.
And I'm Lex.
And what a wonderful new year it is. For those that may not know or have not been part of the Albany life as it is, right, we just had a new mayor installed, name of Dorcey Applyrs. She is the very first Black mayor, the 76th mayor of Albany city. So, yeah, I'm very excited for her.
I am too.
Yeah. And her first act, I'm sorry for jumping into it immediately, was actually an executive order to kind of like invigorate the nightlife here in Albany, New York. I'm very excited for that because a great deal of us have been saying, and I guess hearing over our lifehood here, how much there was not much to do in Albany, New York.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, have you heard that before yourselves?
I mean, as someone who plays a lot of D&D, I'm really excited for the night. No, I'm jokingly so, but Albany is definitely a place with a lot of artists, a lot of creatives, and not just in I feel like every time people think about artists, they think usually like classic painting or illustrating and stuff. But it's a place that deserves and needs a lot of business. And a lot of times things close before 10 even. Sometimes there's not a lot, especially after COVID. And I know a lot of cities dealt with this, especially after COVID. A lot of what people call third spaces, which are like your average bars to things that can be considered clubs. But yeah, not a lot of spaces to heat up, especially for, I would imagine, people that considered themselves to be younger folk, you know, not much of a nightlife culture even at all, because it can't be sustained by the businesses that it used to be sustained by. Lark, from what I remember when I was younger, it's not like I could be in the nightlife, but I remember Lark being more populated, and now now it's people try to avoid it, I believe, in some cases.
Well, listen, I'm very proud of this area. We moved up here when you guys were real little because I like the idea. We moved from Queens, New York, to Albany, New York. Shout out to Queens, Jamaica, Queens. You know, but we moved up here because my job opportunity came up here from the city. I was actually transferred, from New York City to upstate New York by my job. And it was a wonderful change. I always wanted to be up here because at the time, Jamaica was having some of its own issues. And
Jamaica Queens.
Jamaica, Queens, And so when we came up here, it was a great combination of a little bit of a slowdown in terms of lifestyle, but at the same time we're at the hub. This is the New York State capital. The capital. Sometimes we don't. People sometimes refer to us up here as Smallbany. Lovingly so, but this is the hub. This is the state capital, but New York City, because of the financial capital, it gets a lot more love. So I think the nightlife up here, I can't say it. Nightlife has been very successful for me, but the guy, it was, in terms of a father with two young boys. Okay. I wanted it to be moderate, and it was great, but it is growing. And I think there's an opportunity here for people to experience a great deal, and so much history is up here.
Yes, there is. I think Albany itself is definitely known for a lot of its historical elements, and there's like a whole bunch of tours. In fact, my pops a little bit ago during October did like a ghost tour talking about some of the histories about all that. But I want to know a little bit more about Dorcey and your experience with at least what you know about the nightlife, and because I know you have some small connections into there's a gentleman named TGIF,
Yes, actually, I think we both know it. Actually, his name was Craig Earl, right? He actually was part of the LPP program when we were growing up, right? And he was a few years my senior, and he's been from one youth program to another that I'm familiar with. I think he's also been a part of Equinox at one point in time, right? But yeah, no, I've seen as he's progressed. I'm not seen him progress necessarily. But every once in a while you see community members jump from one thing to another, right? And I always recognized him, at one point in time he was DJing at a place called Sneaky Pete's, and at one point in time he was also DJing at a place called Legends up here.
Very nice.
So I know him. So
there's a lot of great things going on. I operate often with, you've heard me say, the Capitol Rep Theater. Capitol Rep Theater is our one of our local community theaters. We actually have another theater. Now I don't want to, like separate the upstate, the capital region. But if you're not from this region, you have what the three big places here are Albany, Schenectady, and Troy.
Right.
There's other distinctions of other areas, but that's generally considered the upstate capital district.
Right.
But there's a lot of nightlife that are happening, and and you don't want to separate the areas. The cities are so close, but I think each city brings power to the other city.
Indeed, yeah.
Because there's another theater called the Proctor's Theater. There's the Palace Theater.
Yeah.
There is and we have a lot of theater groups up here. The Mopco Theater in Schenectady, New York, is another thing that I involve myself with improv.
Indeed.
So there's a lot of things going on in the area, that you can participate. We're very happy that Mayor Applyrs is focusing on Albany itself.
Right. Actually, this brings up a good question, and this is also, please comment in our section. And I want to know what people mean by this. When you hear the word nightlife, what do you guys think about? Because I think I typically go to things like people are thinking about clubs, people are thinking about, I guess, any type of maybe hopefully past 10, to like at least maybe to at least midnight kind of place you can stay, but probably grab drinks, feel like very social, have a little bit of fun, any type of communities. But I will say, I think it's one of those things where like I always considered theater separate from something that we consider nightlife. Oh, okay. Because that's like events and things, but that I hadn't thought about.
Well, first and foremost, let me ask you: have you never been to a club before?
Like I said, I play a lot of D&D. So no, I've been. It's weird. So I've been to clubs. I just haven't been to a club that I feel like is a club, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Let me put it this way: there are some places that are named cafes, and they're not just cafes. You know what I mean? There are some places that are diners that aren't just diners. You're like, all right, what is the kind of? So I feel like I've been to clubs, but they're not what they are in the movies. I expect lights on the floor.
Yeah.
So like I think I go to a spot, and maybe it's just like people have drinks, but it's not super fun. And unfortunately, like I said, I have to keep mentioning this, that I'm a nerd. I'm not sure if you, if you're familiar. There's a show that was called Batman Beyond when we were on.
Yes.
And it has an opening scene. It's all like cyber tech, kind of tech future stuff. But it's because he's supposed to be kind of a cooler Batman because he's a younger Batman. Right. He shows himself like in a club a lot, as like his secret identity. You know what? You don't care about his Timmy. It doesn't matter. We won't get into cigarette. But all I'm saying,
you can tell the truth. Just give them all of it. Get over it.
I want to know who is Batman Beyond. That's the real question.
There's an intro in which there's at a club and there's just like strobe lights and people dancing. And I've never been to a place that feels like that. Right. So I guess I've been to clubs, but never been like, woo.
Yeah.
I will say, I remember one time, and this was hilarious. I went to, there was a place, what was it, the Armory. They had an event. It was like one of the first times I was at a, what do they call it, like a rave or something.
Okay.
Right? A rave like that. And I am not sure what everyone does at raves, but sometimes there are things that are considered to be illicit materials. And, people are doing that kind of thing. Mind you, I am someone who I think off of just music and energy and kind of my general insanity, doesn't need much to entertain myself.
Right.
So I remember I was having a good time. There were glow sticks. I was dancing around doing that kind of stuff.
Right.
And then someone had asked me, he's like, oh man, this guy must be lit. What is he on? And I thought that was very confusing because I think I had 2 cans of Red Bull and there was a lot of bass music, but I think they assumed I was on drugs.
Wow.
Oh Lord.
But no, I am someone who sees a lot of strobing lights and goes, look.
Yeah.
I've never been to the Armory myself. By the time, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, but I know we're talking about the nightlife and the clubs and this, but the reasoning is why, for the mayor, it's not just, it's not like, okay, we got a new mayor and she just wants to have a party town.
No, goodness.
No, the idea is it's economic vitality. One of the things that Albany sometimes or has in times past kind of suffered with was keeping things alive.
Yes.
And and the economic vitality gets affected by that. So in other words, you have more things that are attractions up here, more things that bring you up here. the more economics will be better. And I appreciate that, which also brings in, public safety.
Right.
The more people you have, and if you have more things, more people, more things, public safety. So therefore, she's also addressing that. So all these things are not, you can't look at it as, just a composite. They're all together. So I'm appreciative of the mayor's and this is at the same time we have a new mayor in New York City.
Right.
So it's quite possible these two new young mayors can work together to bring some of that New York City energy, as my son would say, to Albany. And I think she's that type of person to try to engage and have that kind of conversation.
I would almost guarantee it. I believe with a lot of the stuff that Mayor Mamdani from New York City is going to have to do, he's going to be in Albany a lot, especially for his first year.
Absolutely.
Now, I guess my question before we go back into Albany directly, what is New York City energy to you, Father? Because I know we were raised in Jamaica, Queens for a short period of time, but we didn't experience nightlife at all. I came up here when I was 10. Right.
So, speak for yourself. I was a baby. I was lit.
You were lit. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You were rocking. You were rocking, and you were rocking it. Right, absolutely.
Wow.
Right. But
so if he was 10, how old would that make it? That's just for the public.
Yeah. So it would have been 6.
Turning 6.
I always thought I was a little older. I felt like I got up around 8 or something.
My 10th birthday was celebrated up here, so you probably came up here, probably when I was 9, and you were 5.
Okay.
So they were little guys when they got up here. So they, I've always struggled with the idea of how long do you live someplace before you say this is where I'm from. So I moved up here. So what year would that have been? That would have made us I don't know.
You're 28 my senior, so that means you would have been 37.
So what?
This is the best idea for us to do math live.
I'm doing horrible math. But in other words, my earliest, someone's figured it out there. But most of my life I thought of as being in the New York City region. So I always consider myself a New York City person, Queens person. But obviously I've embraced and enjoy my life here in Albany. What about you guys? Nels and Paul, how long do you have to live somewhere before you're from that place?
10, 15 years, maybe?
10, 15 years.
10, 15 years.
10, 15, okay.
There you go. So I'm officially from Jamaica, Queens.
Well,
I didn't quite make the cut.
But here's the deal. You said, what is New York City energy? Well, unfortunately, that question is kind of filled with, it depends on who you ask. And you did ask me. But New York City energy, in my perspective, has a lot of facets. There is the social side of New York City. New York City has an interesting dynamic in terms of friendliness.
Okay.
Sometimes people say people in New York City are pretty harsh, and the famous "I'm walking here," that kind of thing in New York. And there's a truth to it, but I also think that there is a heart of New York City that people don't get a chance to see. When you're on the subways and you see people giving to those who are in need. You see the entertainment that happens in the subway system. There's a connectiveness in the city that I've seen, and when I was growing up there, that it is kind of like you have a rhythm that's very fast paced. Which is not as Albany, New York doesn't have the same speed.
No,
it's not quite the same speed, but it's kind of like New York City light. It has all of the things that New York City would have, just in a smaller, quantity.
It's a diet borough.
Just to jump in, I will say one of the most, endearing or distinguishing things I feel like I've learned being upstate in comparison to the city with the experience I've had there. And I guess I take this more from a media perspective, because a lot of my experience with the city, being the city, at least on my own or some type of official capacity, is usually with work or something like that. I was doing some film and all that jazz. And I would say the most interesting thing is the community that can develop in Albany, because it's smaller.
Yes.
So you have way more of an opportunity to meet, interact, and do actually what we're doing now with our neighbors and
Absolutely.
That's various fields podcast. But I believe that's something that also a lot of people look for in Albany. And I think that's an interesting thing where most people who also, I think there's a moment where people choose Albany in Albany. We're like, the city, as much as like it's known for its thing, I think a lot of people, if you're in Albany or in upstate, you kind of do this weird like comparison thing.
Yes.
It's like, the city's like a bigger brother to Albany.
Right.
But at the same time, I think the interesting thing is people also forget New York City is like also one of the most profound cities in the world, not just in the United States. So it's an interesting comparison. With that being like, your neighbor, with that being like what you're next to is like, how do you define yourself? And I think the most interesting thing is the amount of community you can make with a lot of people who usually commute down to the city as well. So like you said, you bring the New York City energy here, it seems to get distilled in its own form, and then you meet a lot of creatives, you meet people who want to bring the nightlife, people much like the mayor who seems like they try to split the difference and make that middle ground of like, what is Albany on its own, but also how can it feel that same kind of vitality and that same kind of admiration people have for the city.
Right. And I love the fact, like, okay, so when it comes down to even calling it Smallbany, right? I know when we were growing up, a lot of us have said that almost begrudgingly, like, oh, there's nothing else to do here. Everyone knows each other, yada, yada. But I think that's a little bit of the heart of Albany in itself, because now, like, we are also aware, like, even as we're talking about Craig a little bit, we also aware that he was in us, like, some part of our outer circle, inner circle a little bit. And everyone knows each other in that respect, and also not to name drop anyone necessarily, but like we also had Kevin Johnson also there, a part of that signing of that executive order as well. He's part of the Palace. I had an honor of working with him before, right? And all these people kind of make up the community who are also equally concerned about what to do with this economic infrastructure of how to build up Albany to be for a better place for everyone going on.
Tight-knit community.
Creating opportunity is one of the things that Mayor Applyrs is about, creating opportunity within the area. So that speaks to jobs. That speaks to giving everybody a fair shake. So I'm interested in seeing what it is the future of Albany with this mayor. When I first moved up here, I also participate with a band named the Refrigerators. Okay, we'll probably have, and the Refrigerators is still a party band. And I say that to say this: in smaller towns, I haven't lived in any other smaller town than Albany. But if you want to affect change in your community, it's nothing like a smaller town. Because small town, you can see actually your name floats around faster. Your ability to make a difference is seen quicker. So especially if you're in Albany and the state capital, you can if you have a ambition in politics or whatever you have the ambition in, you wet your feet here, it becomes like the precursor to going to bigger cities or what have you. But staying here and building up here is one of the things that people are trying to keep, because we have some of the biggest colleges up here.
Right, absolutely.
So sometimes people come here to go to college, but they move away, as they get their degrees, which, we're not, we understand that. But, we're also in this city, we're hoping the idea that, the education that you got here, the mind that is here, we'd love to see you stay a little bit, to help build this very community that has helped you get the education that you have, and but it's a wonderful town. Yeah, I really do like it. It's like any city. Right. It's not without its problems. Right. We do have crime, of course. It's not like we've eliminated crime, but
let's start talking about this like Gotham City.
Not at all. But
Batman Beyond, we got Crime Alley, we're ready for it.
But I would say so far for me, in reference to places to live, I made the choice to raise my family here. And I think it's been fantastic.
I actually wanted to jump where I believe, it's actually weird saying this. It's a great choice, Dad. Thank you. No, but I do think it's one of those things where there are two aspects to it, because I think that one of the privileges of growing up in what is considered to be a smaller town is not just like being in community, but also it's more more refined as it's more condensed as well. Where like I've always grown up with a mix of cultures in my life, and that's the thing that I've had to learn for. And when I say this, not like a lot of people I believe come from like, oh, they are the only person of color in the predominantly white school. That's a very common experience. But in this case, I believe it's like I'm realizing how uncommon it is to. It's usually I am the person of color, and then I am amongst whatever the predominant race's peers. Where for me, I believe most of my friend group is usually very well diverse. And that's something that I've realized as I've gotten older and experienced more. It's very unique to me, and I expect some changes there. And one of the things that's also interesting as we're talking about being younger and growing up, I too share the sentiment of when I was younger, thinking of like, yeah, the city doesn't have much to do. I wanted to be able to do more. But then I remembered I had no job and I was like 13. And as I've gotten older and maybe have a little bit more money and more experience, I've also realized I'm a nerd. So I really didn't do much at all in the first place. And there's a lot more to do if you really do seek it out. One of the things I find actually very interesting about Albany, which I love, and you can find this in the city, and I think it's more special that you can find in Albany. And as we see, Albany also, I believe, the capital region, a lot of good food. A lot of good food, and it's usually one of those, the kind of the hole in the wall kind of thing. But I think the fun thing about it is like there's oh my gosh, now I can shout out a restaurant. There's a restaurant called Cafe Calibra. It's an Italian restaurant that's very close to Southport. I can't remember the exact address. I'm gonna be able to shout them out. A very nice restaurant, but you would never know. You would never know it's there because it doesn't have like a giant billboard. It's not the same kind of thing that's in the city where there's a lot more advertisement or something like that. So I think finding hidden gems where it's usually good food or places that become yours. People usually try to find a spot. I think it is very rewarding in a place like this.
Yes, absolutely. Let's go into some of the rewarding areas of New York. Upstate New York, Albany region, Capital District area. What are some of the parks that we have? A lot of parks up here that are very nice. What's the big park up on when you drive up and it's the
Lincoln or Washington?
You mean the Washington Park?
Thatcher.
Thatcher Park.
Thatcher. Thank you, Paul. Thatcher Park's a wonderful, nature park. Just moment.
Nature park is really
Nature Park.
Well, I was saying there are different parks that exist. Where there's like, you have entertainment there. And but this kind of
more preserved, right?
More preserved, something like that. And you can, do hiking and things of that nature. That's how it's said. Obviously, nature park is said by a person that doesn't do a lot of hiking, but it's available. I remember going up there when you guys were little, we had our moment in the snow and using the various snowboarding things and stuff like that.
I believe that was actually in Guilderland region.
Yeah, it was. You're right.
So,
absolutely right.
So I wasn't hurt by the snow in Albany at all. I was letting you know. I fell off my toboggan. That's all.
Yes.
No big deal.
It is noggin off his toboggan.
That's funny.
Yeah, that was a horrible time for me.
Well, I enjoyed it for the moment that it was, but I think it was a little.
Do you mind if I?
Please.
You mind share this?
It's a wintertime story.
Here's parenting 101 for those who are new parents and you have young people. You try your best. You have that line of like, I want my children to experience so many things. And so sometimes you do things that you're not even familiar with. So when we came up from the city, I never really did snowing in this, we did snowboarding or anything that, skiing, that wasn't a part of New York City life, But anyway, we got up here and they had those big tubes, inner tubes and stuff like that. And I saw my neighbors and friends, hey, come on over here to this big hill thing. And the kids are going to do it. And I'm like, okay, let's give it a shot, And I think I might have went down one time with them and, and Trey might have been, like you said, about 9, and I would have put Lex about 6 or 5 or 6, And they were little, and I put them in this big inner tube, And, all right, okay, it's your turn, and these 2 little guys, they're going down the hill, and they hit something, like a snowbank, and I see these 2 little bodies fly into the air. And I'm like, there's nothing I can do. And they just fly, kids are made out of
I'm free
and that's exactly what it looked like. To my mind, it was like slow motion. It was like my baby. I can do nothing, but apparently they survived.
That's why I don't like the cold.
That's funny.
But
honestly, I think the experience, the reason why that experience was worse in the moment, it was not so much that we jumped out of our sleds in that instance, and I fell flat-faced into the snow. Right, I was okay up until when I became, I guess another barrier for someone else to jump or slide over when I was younger too. I was about to get up. I was like, everything's fine. And I just got mowed over by some other child. So
I have no recollection of this.
Well, look, listen, here's the thing. I don't want to, we have a tendency to kind of go off track, But so
get all sled.
That particular snow accident, has nothing to do with our mayor. She wants to avoid any snow accidents like that. I'm reading more and more about her and how she wants to engage community members and business owners and a variety of different stakeholders to solicit input and feedback about our city and inform policy priorities that really serve as a mandate, as this mayor serve as her North Star and a compass in terms of how I will govern.
And that's from News Channel 13. So thank you.
Yeah, so that's a fantastic concept of how a mayor should be a mayor of the people by actually, getting involved and talking to the community and being there.
Absolutely.
Being present is how leadership, helps people gain confidence. Right. And that makes me feel good. And again, it's a fantastic idea to say, and she's the first person of color.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting that we're still living in a time of first?
Right. We're living in, as you say, unprecedented times, but usually that's set in a negative context. In this case, I think it's one of those things where it shows that we still have a long way to go.
Yep.
But I think in moments like this, it's also very comforting that there are still more firsts, because it also shows the progress that we have made and the progress we can still make.
Absolutely.
The things that we can still shoot for.
That's right. Yeah. So it's not a bad thing, that we have a first. It's just amazing that we're still living in the remnant of that time. But in any case, who knows? Maybe there's someone out there that knows Mayor Applyrs. Applyrs. I am so sorry. I've lost it. If you know Mayor Applyrs, we'd love to have her on the program. And we're looking forward to talking to her, and maybe somehow or another, and finding out some of her ambitions for the city.
With that being said, out of curiosity, what are some either changes or things we noticed, things that we would like to know more about from Albany as a city? What are the things that we see, either maybe not necessarily better, but aspects that are like, hey, this would be really cool to have. This is really cool from a mayoral perspective.
Well, I am again, we're talking about how Smallbany kind of got its name, Smallbany, right? The fact that we are not so much a close-knit community, but we are still small enough to know everyone, right? And I do appreciate that, because we all have a hand in kind of building up a community with one another, right? And in order to do that, right, having, I guess, platforms like various fields, right, allows us to kind of highlight those particular communities that we not just show interest in, but have not had an opportunity to have as much of a voice in the community as we think they ought to have, right? So if there is anyone else that also wants to share their voice on this podcast or anything else like that, you can always just hit us up on our website as well, variousfields.com. And also, if you have any other particular niches or companies that you want us to, I guess, highlight particularly or have as a guest here, you can always comment below. And also, don't forget to share, and subscribe. Hit all the buttons. That's right. And just tell us more about the stories of Albany that we may not be addressing immediately, right? But I also like the fact that just because of how small this place is, right, we have a way of kind of building up particular niches. And this is kind of the reason why things kind of rise and fall, right? rise and fall because we kind of like talk about like there was a hi-fi and lo-fi bar that kind of like came up and like shut down recently. Right. But that hit a particular niche, right, that may not have been wholeheartedly addressed in the Albany region directly. There were a lot of people that enjoy that kind of space, right? And I appreciate the fact of someone trying to build up a third space like that, right? I don't think it got as much publicity as it should have to stay as sustained as it could have in the nightlife of Lark, you know? And a lot of things like that. Like we lost like the Muddy Cup a while back, you know, and I still have a shirt that you had, right? And that used to be a kind of like a wonderful rustic kind of spot that I can always attribute to a typical coffee shop, you know, like, and a lot of those places are kind of like becoming sterilized now with the advent of, you know, technology and AI being a thing, right? Everyone's like, you know, push button here, touch. Like there's nothing that feels palpable anymore. You always have to be like a distance away, and that I think that kind of breaks down the nightlife aspect of what Albany is in terms of a community.
But you bring up a very, very good point because then Albany, once again, is not, you know, in its own little bubble. That this is something that's a phenomenon across the country, across the world, I would say, particularly since COVID. That was a big that affected people's mindset as to what is nightlife, what is community. You know, how do we engage with our phones and TikTok? We engage each other so much in the comfort of our own home. Going out and being a part of community is not as, you know, it doesn't happen like it used to. I mean, you think about it right now. I'm going to tell you, I've recently purchased a projector for the you know, just a little thing, and I could put on the wall like a movie screen. Right. You know, so even going to movies, you know, with the exception of some of the big blockbuster movies, you know, people are not. You don't see big lines, you know, anymore around movies all the time and stuff like that. So it affects a lot. You know, and to your point, the disco, if you will, of old, or the dance place. You know, I don't think there's as many as there used to be because I think, you know, the younger people, at least for me, that used to be almost a phrase. We talk about phrases that follow one another. Dinner and dancing. You know, let's go out for dinner and dancing. You know, that used to be a thing. Right. You know, you go to dinner, we're going to go after that dancing. You know, but now I don't know. There's not much of that. You know, now it's people that we'll go to dinner. And then it's even more so. Let's Netflix and chill. You know, and stuff like that. People just kind of, you know, we've become. So I think it's important for us as a community to get back to engaging with one another. You know, I think we've lost. I mean, I know. Again, we kind of sidestep a little bit because
I think it's all
applied.
It's all connected because what we're really talking about, even though we're talking about the nightlife, we're mainly talking about the nightlife because we're talking about community, and I think we're talking about the changes that we've seen in community and community. And also, when you say community, that's a very broad statement, right? It's who you know, but also who you know creates a certain social atmosphere, and that social atmosphere is oftentimes called culture. And I think that's the thing that we're talking about, like how the culture has changed and the culture shifts, and culture always shifts. I think something I've noticed, or this is one of those things that. It's I can't say it's hearsay as much as it's one of those a perspective-based thing. But a lot of the things now I've heard from people around my age and maybe even younger talk about how the club mentality, weirdly enough, has seemed to shifted more towards the gym, where a lot of people seem to that becomes the new social atmosphere. And you'll probably notice there's a lot more people kind of recording themselves working out, doing things, but the new social atmosphere has usually become the gym, which I think it has its own like positive and healthy aspects to it. Especially you'll see that way more during the new year. People usually have like New Year's resolution of that. And then also, I think it's one of those things where people have to also not underestimate or accidentally undermine the connections that are made through online, you know, because now it just really extends your community. But now instead of your community being your immediate neighbors, your community can be a friend that you have in Switzerland or a friend that you have, something like that. And I think that also opens up a lot more open-mindedness for a lot of people, because now you're no longer limited to being able to talk to just the people who are around you. You can talk to people who are interested in. And I think kind of being able to blend that together with kind of where we're at, especially in a place like Albany, you'll get more artists. You'll get more people who are creative because you're like, oh, okay, now I understand where this art is coming from, as well as hopefully people pouring more into their community because now it's like, I want to bring the thing that's out there to here. And I feel like I see a lot of that, and that's why a lot of the artists that I happen to know, or I love to be able to support a whole bunch of local and small artists, but I believe the culture that can be developed here in Albany, that's much harder to do in the city or much harder to do in bigger cities, is that you don't have as much of a competitive culture. Because there's a lot of people who are, if they're not directly trying to support, at least they see where you're trying to go. And most people I've known, luckily to know, have never tried to directly get in the way. It's more like, hey, whatever you can do, we would love to see it here in Albany. And I feel like that's much harder in the city. Maybe just because of money, maybe just because of getting your name out there. But it's the whole dog eat dog world, small fish, big pound, whatever that phrase is. Bring a horse to water or something.
I mean, there's definitely a fine line, I think, like because we're also labeled a college town or a college city, right? And a lot of the businesses that have been, that rose and dropped has always applied to that demographic between like 18 to 24, right? And like, mind you, as you age out of that, even as you're, like yourself, you realize not so much that there's not much for you to do, but like as the demographic changes in the club, you feel like you're a little ousted yourself because there's not much that really appeals to you unless, of course, you build it yourself, right? So you could definitely do that. But like, what is it that would draw the same attention if the main demographic that's being kind of like worked with is that college demographic? You know what I mean? So like, we can definitely do it. We can all build it up as a community, right? And like you said, I like we are very much nerds, right? Up here. So like, if there is a way to I do miss coffee shops personally, right? Because I always felt like a spot like where like people can like, gather and actually just talk about what the next big thing ought to be, right? And not so much like, oh, let's just head on to my apartment, let me head on to your house, and like we can have like 2 drinks together and just chill, right? Because that's what we're doing right now. It's like, we have an actual community that we can actually build up in larger places and have like, I don't know, like what was the Muddy Cup? What was that spot on Madison? Hudson River Coffee. It was exactly that. Like that was a spot, honestly.
Well, honestly, I'd also say one quick thing, which is I think it's less you missing. There are plenty of cafes. Right? I feel like Albany is like the problem. This is the biggest problem I've noticed with Albany is just a lot of places just close early. A lot of places that close around like 9. And honestly, I say like 9 because I think the latest average is like maybe around 10. Which for a restaurant, things like that, you have your own hours. But I feel like there's a lot of people now who either whether it's because of their busy schedule, whether it's because of work, maybe they're just night owls. They stay up later, and it's harder. It's harder to want to do more, especially when you can't plan around food. And that's a lot of people. You have to plan around the time I'm up, while I'm hungry, things like that. And I remember one of the reasons why Hudson River Coffee House was so cool, because it's in an area where, you're next to drinks, you're next to restaurants. Right. But if you don't want to drink, you're not someone who's drinking, you're not trying to do that, but also you're trying to study, you're right next to your college, you have stuff to do. You can, I think it didn't close until like 1 or 2 a.m. or something. And you can get a coffee there. Right. And that's the biggest thing. And I don't necessarily know. I know coffee is usually associated with the morning, but also I think there's a lot of things with just American capitalism, just marketing in general, where having a
coffee is an all-day drink.
It's an all-day drink now. It is an all-day drink now. So I'm just saying, I just feel like if you're a cafe, you want to make a little more money, I just imagine just stay open later. And I don't know enough about business to be like, hey, just stay open later. But stay open later. Give it a shot. Give it a try. Yeah. Maybe you break during dinner time and then come back open around like 9 or something.
See what Mayor Applyrs is doing, it seems to be that what we're discussing, if she's getting her task team that are trying to get people together, these questions are being tackled, because I think that Albany benefits from cross promotion with one group to another, and I think we have that opportunity better. Even though we have obviously businesses that are in competition with each other, we also help to breed a community of consumers by cross promotion. And the outside life, everyone is affected by it now because of how we live on our phones, and so trying to bring the outside back. I don't know that
bring the outside back. I like that.
We need to be able to communicate, because I think we communicate differently, and I would suggest to you that even how we interact with our neighbors,
Right.
Now, our friends and stuff like that. We've become we've become isolationists.
Yeah.
Because we stay down on our phones and this and the other. And so going out into the community is something that requires your ability to engage.
Right.
And people have lost that ability overall, and oftentimes the internet, it breeds more of a aggressive kind of interaction, engagement, and it doesn't speak to the totality of who human beings are. And of course, we're living in, I don't want to bring the current politics in it, but we can see what's going on in our nation.
A lot
is going on, and we're doing a lot of, I think we spoke of it last week, othering, these and thems, and these are who, and we've lost humanity. So I applaud Mayor Applyrs by her trying to begin the process of bringing those things that will bring us together as a community, and that's what we need to do. I mean, that's across the world. We need to be able to engage with one another, some more, because if we can engage with one another, we can talk to one another, and we might be able to fix certain things.
Right.
And it's something you remind me of, and kind of referencing Mamdani again and Mayor Applyrs, is that I think it's important that they're both, like you said, young people of color, because I think it also doesn't just inspire, but I think it can remind people that it's not, that community is not, or politics is not just a place where people sit who have power or are in power, but it is a place of community. Like a mayor is supposed to be someone who cares about the town, cares about the city, and that you can work with. And I believe Mayor Mamdani from New York City seems to exude that very much into a lot of his campaigns from what we've seen. And from what we've seen of Mayor Applyrs, I believe we can see that a lot. There's a lot of videos of them around, like interacting with the community supporting them. And the reason why I also mentioned a very interesting thing about Albany, that I imagine and I know it's very plentiful in other cities, but because Albany, capital region in general, but Albany itself is a smaller city, but also the way Albany is set up in terms of I guess driving, or the way it's set up in terms of there's the downtown, there's uptown, and there's like all the other sections. It's very checkerboarded in terms of its demographic. I've always found it funny that there's a town, or there's an area called Loudonville. That's very, very small, and it's like in a little subsection of Albany, and a lot of big houses there, but not a lot of restaurants, not a lot of there's like a couple of what do they call, like cross mall, strip mall kind of areas,
strip mall, yeah,
that kind of things. But like you don't have unless you have a reason to be there. It's hard for, I feel like, just to averagely, like, hey, I'm going here, I'm going to go to Loudonville, let's all hang out in Loudonville, maybe even go to a pizza shop, but you also have to know the businesses.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of things where, like, hey, I'm in one area, this is my community, this is people I know, this is the downtown area, these are my friends, and then you make a left, and you'd be like, oh, I've never even been here, I didn't know. And I think that's not, I don't want to call it a failing, but I think it's surprising because of how small. I would assume I know every area in Albany, but it really is like one cross section. Oh my gosh, all these houses, all these things, this is where the doctors and the lawyers live, and you would never know. So I think blending that, making it less checkerboarded, blending, having more people understanding the neighbors more, understanding the community more, and feeling more free to rock. Just, like this is not like in the city, it would take a while to get to a different jurisdiction area. Most of those places that are outside of the city, where this is like, again, you drive down from downtown Albany and then you make a left you never made before, and that's it's a completely different area.
Right.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I think Albany in this region, the capital district area, is so unique that just driving 5 minutes, you can be in a whole different geography in terms of what's around you. You'll be in mountains and hills, and then you go in the city. You're just moments away, And then there's so much history. We didn't go into there's so many buildings. The architecture is beautiful. There's so many things. I was even surprised. Kind of go back into New York City, where our Mayor Mamdani, where he had his swearing in, was in an abandoned New York subway station, and it was so ornate and beautiful. I've never, and it's amazing what we live, what's right around us, and you don't see it, and it was beautiful to see. But that is almost commonplace in the Albany region in reference to the buildings.
Absolutely.
The buildings that are here, they're just so big and gigantic. And in the architecture was, because this was the seat, this was the beginning, seat of New York, where it started. So a lot of the construction that was in this from, way back, it's almost, maybe Albany's thing should be, come for the history, stay for the community. I think that we can really build. Because there's so much around. If you like history like I do, you can see how this country was built.
I do think. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I do think that Albany definitely needs to lean into its history more, and I do think we need to also have a better reputation for ourselves, but have a reputation. That I think our reputation actually needs to be a little more selfish than we are. I think our reputation needs to be a little more confident, because we're also part of the original 13 colonies, which means we fought the British Empire.
Yes, indeed.
And I think we should just say that more, whether it means anything. But I was like, yeah, we did it. Something I've been wanting to, and for the comments and people are listening, I do want to make this a thing. I want to start saying, because especially like I said, I'm originally from Jamaica, Queens, but I've been here since I'm 5, so I can't really say I'm from Jamaica, Queens.
Right.
So I just like saying that I'm from A-Town. I like doing that, but then you'd be like, I'm from A-Town. You know what I'm trying to say? And then be like, what town are you talking about? A-Town. Because it sounds like Albany, but if you don't want to claim it, you still have a little wiggle room. I'm from A-Town.
I'm from A-Town.
Wow.
I mean, honestly, I do like what you're saying about having the community kind of hype itself up, and I think that's the main thing when it comes down to particular businesses here. There are a lot of businesses that I believe might set themselves up for what they believe to be long-term success, right? And then they will either pick a niche or pick a brand or a product that might be everyone loves hot dogs, everyone loves this, that, and the third thing. How could we fail? And then you have 19 different hot dog shops, right? And as opposed to asking the question as to what is the community missing, right? And actually having an ear to the ground as to what the community is actually looking for in itself.
I'm sorry to interrupt again.
No, you got it.
I just thought of something, and this is just to underline your point. I've gone to Salem a couple of times, Salem, Massachusetts.
Yeah.
And Salem is known for
witchery and pirates. Salem is mainly known for Salem witch trials, things like that.
Right.
And that is branded in that city all over every shop. But also because of that, during Halloween specifically, so many people flood in. It explodes. It's hard to park in the city in July. And they get so much money. And I'm like, we can do that with the American Revolution. We can do that with 250 years of history, things like that. And I'm just saying, if Salem can pull it off, we're like, hey, we leaned into the witches. I realized that came off strong.
A little harder.
Witches get money, but that's all I'm trying to say.
Where are we going now?
Albany has a lot of capital.
Yeah, indeed. I got you.
Bravo.
There you go. That was good. There is a lot here. As you said, all of the founders have somehow or another found their way here. George Washington, actually, Abraham Lincoln would famously come to New York on the train station that was here. There's a big train station that was once here, and so we see a lot of history here. I actually had the opportunity to play a gentleman by the name of Adam Blake Jr., who every year I play him, and he had built one of the biggest hotels. He was an African-American millionaire, So here's the point is, we have a young mayor, and she's got a lot of vitality herself, and we're excited because, we're starting to see, I think what we're noticing now in politics, that there is a shift.
Yes,
there's a shift going on. We're going to see more and more young people. In fact, that's one of the things that Mayor Applyrs is looking to do, is to bring young people to sit at the table.
Yes.
Because truthfully, how we say the children are our future.
Absolutely.
And our future is now. Because what's happening is all the old heads, in Washington, this and the other, are they're going to be leaving, and the country's going to be run by the next generation,
absolutely,
as it should be done, and we're looking to see this new vitality that is being presented to this area, and we're once again we're very proud of our new mayor. We're wishing her the best and everything, and the thing I like about her being a mayor is that she has a history in public service.
Right.
See, and again, when you have a history in public service, you just don't serve yourself. I want you to mark a public servant, let's say, I don't know, like a president that has never had any public service in their history. There's a distinction in how you communicate, how you deal with people, where your caring lies. That's all I'm saying.
Right.
Message.
I also like the idea of like with that being said, we also have these devastating cuts to education, and like you also have to kind of like put in the factor like how much an education cut can actually affect a college town.
Of course.
Like we already lost one branch at Siena College in like the center of Albany. And so like with that, like our like economy from that entire area kind of just dropped. Like there was a spot that was a wonderful Chinese food spot that we used to visit every single time, right? And that was gone. Like I know Chinese spaces come and go from time to time, right? But that used to be like such a centralized hub for.
It was right next to the college town.
Exactly, right next to it, right? And then you lose a lot of businesses just like that. So like, why is it that like if we are such a college town, there never seems to be a defense for any type of education on our front? Why is it that like there are libraries that are like poorly underfunded in our college town? Like I understand that everything is digital now, but like these are still spots that you can actually use to study. Not everything has to be a rented out study hall from the college direct, right? You can always have even like programs and projects from said colleges that help support the community if they make those part of the outreach, right? Like why is it that we have such insular levels of education that kind of like encourage students to kind of like branch outward away from the city? Why can't we have like actual programs that help develop the city itself?
I think there have been initiatives to do just that. And we just keep on the lookout for it. But traditionally, what's happened in the country, just in general, when young people go away to college, it's assumed they will go away to come back. And oftentimes they don't necessarily, stay where they are. But these are new things that, we're dealing with the technology, AI, all has a part to play in this, how people gain education. A lot of people are not going to college campuses anymore. People are gaining their degrees online, so a lot of things are, it all has to do, I'm going to go back to what I said originally. We have to make outside back again. We have to make that more enjoyable, the engagement with human beings, that's what we want to do.
And something I also think, as you were saying this earlier, I think we are going to see a change, and not necessarily starting with Mayor Applyrs, but I do believe it's prominent that they are going to be ahead of it, because I think we're also seeing people care a lot more, especially with knowing everything that's happening in national politics. I think that's allowing a lot more people to tune in and to like wanting to care about the nation as a whole, and also making people more invested in politics, which means a lot more people are invested in their local politicians.
Right.
I think that's why, even because people don't understand, going back to Mayor Mamdani, as much as that was a New York City mayoral election, and it's been a long time, a while, where there's been so much energy around a New York City mayoral election, because to the point where people from California and other people who couldn't even vote were like, hey, we want this guy to win.
Right.
And I think, and it became New York City's responsibility. And in fact, as much as we were part of New York State, and as originally from Jamaica, Queens, I'm very proud to be of New York City and from New York City, and also remember how unique New York City is, to be able to elect Mayor Mamdani, who is the one of the first Muslim mayors.
Yes.
And also I think he's 33, I believe.
I can't remember how old he is.
Maybe 34. 34 is a younger mayor, but I think that also is going to inspire a lot of people in Albany to pay more attention to the local elections, things like that. And also shout out to also our local senator. I believe it's Patricia Fahey, who is a local senator who I believe technically is the new mayor, the new senator of the Albany district, starting last year, I believe. So I believe either they're a full year in or a couple of months in. And I think this upcoming year might be their second go at it, being the state senator of the Albany. But I think, Mayor Applyrs, and then also the Senator Patricia Fahey, and other people who are probably looking at Albany, and other public officials, other people that you said, I'm looking for the word, other people who just help their community. I think we're going to have a lot more people who focus on that, pay more attention to that, and we'll see the changes coming to Albany, especially this next year or so.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, we're about to close this down. I just want to, get some last statements from you guys, and we'll close on out. And
absolutely. I feel as if we're definitely headed in a new direction, a wonderful, great direction for the new year. We are always been very community centered here at Various Fields, and I'm very happy that we had this chance to talk more about how the community can grow from it. From the new 76th mayor. So congratulations once again.
Yes. Also, he mentioned what we're doing here at Various Fields. Please remember to go to our website, www.variousfields.com. You'll see a lot of our content there. You can get all of our YouTube things here. Also, I just want to just say to the people, remember, local politics is national politics. When you vote, you affect what happens nationally. So we're coming up on midterms. Please, we're seeing the shift, what's going on in this country. We're seeing young people there. Be prepared to be a part of the change. Help us become better as a nation.
And for all our friends out there near and far, if you're part of the local Albany community or part of Various Fields community, thank you for all the support. We're making some small and slow changes as we're going up, and we're also hoping to give a lot more to our community and to the Albany community as we progress in our podcast career in Albany, New York. And we want to again give maybe a small little applause for our Mayor Applyrs, who's properly there, and we're just very much rooting for them and looking forward to what they have to do.
All right. Well, listen, I love you guys as always, to the moon and back. And we love you all for being here at Various Fields. We will see you on next week. We're coming really quick. We film now, and it's 7 days away, so we're a little bit more current. We're happy about that. We'll see you soon.